Dust swirled through the fractured air of the training yard as the last of the recruits packed away their gleaming rifles. Elias Ward lingered behind, kneeling beside a worn crate, his calloused hands running along the length of a weapon that didn't belong there. Its metal was dull and scarred, the wood grip splintered in places. The rifle was a relic, obsolete even before the First Galactic War, but he cleaned it with the same care a priest might give a relic of faith. Around him, younger soldiers exchanged smirks. Their polished plasma carbines glowed faintly blue, whispering with energy. His only whispered dust. A voice cut through the murmurs. "Still clinging to that museum piece, Ward?" Lieutenant Merrick strode across the yard, his uniform pressed and immaculate, his posture a model of modern military design. His rifle hung across his chest like an extension of his arm, sleek, humming with precision. Elias looked up, meeting the man's grin without a word. "It's not nostalgia," Elias said finally. His tone was calm, the kind of voice that came from surviving too many wars to care about ridicule. "It's reliability." Merrick snorted. "Reliability? That thing fires metal slugs, for Star's sake. The only thing reliable about it is how fast it'll jam when it gets wet." Laughter rippled through the yard. Even the droids paused in their patrols, lenses flickering as if curious. Elias simply nodded. "Maybe, but when your charge pack fails in the rain, mine won't need to." Merrick shook his head, chuckling as he walked off. "You're a relic, Ward. One day you'll learn the galaxy's moved on." Elias watched him go, then turned back to the rifle. The barrel was cold to the touch. The engravings on the stock faded beyond recognition. He'd never told anyone where it came from, how it had belonged to his father, who fought in the Outer Rim rebellions, or how it had saved his life during the siege of Orion's Belt. History didn't matter here. The Coalition didn't value memory, only compliance. "Sergeant Ward," a voice rasped behind him. It was Kyr'Vaan, the alien tactician assigned to his division. The creature's exoskeleton glinted like obsidian. Its voice filtered through a translator that hummed faintly between words. "Commander Tersai requests your presence." "Immediate." Elias rose, slinging the rifle over his shoulder. "What's the crisis this time?" Kyr'Vaan's mandibles flexed briefly, a gesture Elias had learned meant discomfort. "Recon reports movement beyond the neutral perimeter." Could be a false reading. Could be them. The words tightened something in Elias's chest. "The swarm." Kyr'Vaan inclined his head. "The Coalition prefers the term xenoplasmic hostiles." "Yeah," Elias muttered, "because calling them what they are makes them real." They moved through the corridors of the outpost, past holographic maps flickering with red lines. The base was small, a frontier installation orbiting a barren moon on the edge of contested space. Everything about it smelled temporary. Metal corridors, recycled air, soldiers too young to understand fear. Elias walked in silence, the rhythm of his boots steady against the floor. Kyr'Vaan moved beside him, insectoid legs barely touching the ground, each step whisper quiet. In the command chamber, Commander Tersai stood before a wall of holograms. She was human, her uniform scarred from long service, eyes sharp as glass. "Ward," she said without looking up, "we've got a situation. Patrol Echo went silent 2 hours ago. Last transmission mentioned something unusual." "Unusual how?" Elias asked. Tersai tapped a control, and static filled the air. Through the distortion came a single sound, a low hum, rhythmic and deep. It wasn't mechanical. It pulsed like something alive. Elias felt the vibration settle in his chest, faint but insistent. "That's not interference," he said. "No," Tersai agreed. "We traced the signal to the ruins in the Sumerian Valley. Guess what we found there?" The hologram shifted, displaying a visual feed from a recon drone. In the center of the valley stood a half-buried structure, alien in design, covered in faintly glowing veins of blue light. Around it lay the remnants of Patrol Echo, armor scattered, weapons melted into slag. And next to the ruin, half buried in sand, was something else. Elias leaned closer. It was a weapon, primitive in shape, unmistakably human. His voice was barely a whisper. "That's impossible." Torsai turned toward him. You recognize it. It's the same design as mine, he said. Same markings, same make. But that model was retired 2 centuries ago. The room fell silent. Kyr'Vaan's lenses whirred softly as he studied the image. Perhaps it was left from an earlier conflict, he offered. Elias shook his head. No, that rifle's still warm. The hum from the recording deepened for a moment, as though reacting to his words. Torsai frowned. We're sending a team to investigate. You're leading it. Why me? Because you're the only one who knows how to use that kind of weapon. And because whatever's in that valley seems to respond to it. Elias hesitated. Every instinct screamed against it, but the soldier in him obeyed orders before doubt. He nodded once. Understood. Later, in the armory, he loaded his gear in silence. Kyr'Vaan appeared at his side, fastening a harness of weapons across his segmented frame. You believe the relic in the valley is connected to yours, he said. I don't believe anything, Elias replied, sliding a cartridge into place. But if it's humming the same tune, I need to find out why. The alien's gaze lingered on him. You think it's speaking? Elias paused, looking at the rifle resting on the table. For years, he'd felt something, small, fleeting moments when the weapon seemed to anticipate his movements, when its vibrations matched his heartbeat. He told no one. The last man who claimed a weapon could think had been locked in a psych evaluation pod for life. Maybe it's just memory, he said finally. Maybe it's all that's left of the men who carried it. Kyr'Vaan clicked softly, the alien equivalent of skepticism. Or perhaps it remembers more than they did. Elias gave a thin smile. Guess we'll find out. They boarded the transport at dawn. The shuttle's engines roared to life, cutting through the silence of the barren moon. Below them, the landscape stretched out in vast ribbons of ash and stone. The Sumerian valley glowed faintly under the twin suns, its center pulsing with the same blue light from the recording. As they descended, static filled their calms. The hum returned, louder now, pressing against their ears like the beat of a vast, distant heart. Elias gripped the rifle, its vibrations matching the rhythm exactly. He glanced at Kyr'Vaan, who stared out the window, unblinking. This isn't interference, Elias said quietly. No, Kyr'Vaan murmured. It's recognition. The shuttle touched down in a cloud of dust. The valley floor was littered with fragments of glass and bone. Elias led the way, his boots sinking into fine gray sand. Ahead, the half-buried structure pulsed like something breathing. The rifle in his hands seemed to respond with each pulse, the vibrations growing stronger, more insistent. Behind him, the soldiers kept their distance. They had mocked him once, but now they watched with uneasy reverence. Elias raised a hand for silence. The hum deepened, then shifted, tones aligning into something almost musical. For a heartbeat, he could have sworn it formed words, low and ancient, echoing through his bones. Kyr'Vaan's translator buzzed softly. What did it say? Elias didn't answer. He stepped closer to the ruin, the air thickening with invisible pressure. Dust swirled around him like the breath of something vast. The rifle's trigger trembled beneath his finger, and for the first time, Elias wasn't sure if he was the one holding it, or if it was holding him. Smoke lingered over the ravine long after the last echoes of battle had faded. Elias crouched among the twisted remains of alien machinery, his hands working methodically as he cleaned the rifle. The smell of scorched circuitry hung in the air, mingled with the faint metallic scent of old gun oil. His movements were slow, deliberate, almost ritualistic. Each pass of the cloth across the barrel was a conversation between man and weapon, a reminder that precision was born from patience. Around him, the galactic soldiers struggled to repair their equipment, voices tight with disbelief. Their plasma rifles, sleek and humming with dormant energy, lay in useless piles. Elias didn't offer to help. He knew they wouldn't ask. Kyr'Vaan approached, his gait uneven, one limb braced by a splint of carbon fiber. His compound eyes reflected the dim light like pools of oil. He stopped a few meters away, studying the human as though trying to understand what force could turn a relic into salvation. Our diagnostics report failure across all systems, he said finally, his tone measured. Magnetic interference from the storm should have neutralized every conductive weapon. Yet your ballistic apparatus remained functional. Elias didn't look up. That's because it doesn't rely on charge or frequency. Just physics. The alien's mandibles clicked softly, a sign of irritation or curiosity. Elias wasn't sure which. You mean to say it works because it is primitive? Because it's simple, Elias replied, locking the bolt with a satisfying click. Simple doesn't break. The words hung between them, carrying more weight than the alien likely realized. Kyr'Vaan shifted slightly, lowering his voice. The other units mock what they do not comprehend. But this simplicity, it saved us. His tone wasn't quite gratitude, but it wasn't disdain anymore either. Elias nodded once, the closest he would come to acknowledgement. They worked in silence for a while. The forest around them felt different now, less alien, more alive. Every branch and shadow seemed to breathe with awareness. Elias scanned the tree line through his scope, though he knew the enemy had retreated. Habit was stronger than reassurance. His pulse slowed to that steady rhythm he'd learned to live by. Find the pattern, wait for the break, and act before the world could think. Your people were soldiers once, Kyr'Vaan said after a moment. Not mercenaries, not scavengers. True soldiers. We were, Elias answered. He didn't lift his gaze. Until the galaxy decided we weren't worth the trouble. The alien tilted his head. You fought the integration war. Elias's jaw tightened. We lost it. The silence that followed was almost reverent. Kyr'Vaan didn't press further. He turned his gaze toward the wreckage of drones scattered across the valley floor. Their remains smoking faintly. The swarm will regroup, he said finally. They adapt to everything. They learned frequencies, mimic weapon signatures. But your rifle, it leaves no signal. It cannot be traced. That's why it scares them, Elias said. He slid a fresh cartridge into the chamber, feeling the weight settle into place. They don't understand something that kills without warning. As night fell again, the survivors made camp. Alien lights cast an otherworldly glow against the mist, pulsing like bioluminescent veins through the darkness. Elias sat apart from the group, perched on a fallen trunk. He stared at the rifle lying across his knees. The metal bore new scratches, reminders of the night's chaos, but it remained steady in his hands. He ran his thumb along the engraved letter on the stock. Helena. The name surfaced in his mind like a whisper from the past. His grandfather's voice echoed faintly, a memory of Earth deserts and rust-colored skies. A weapon's not a tool, boy. It's a promise. You make it, you keep it. He had kept it through wars, through extinction, through exile. Humanity had left behind their cities and their pride, but he had carried the promise. Kyr'Vaan joined him, lowering himself carefully beside the log. The alien's movement was deliberate, respectful. The command network has requested your presence, he said. They want to analyze the rifle. Elias gave a humorless laugh. Of course they do. They believe it may hold tactical advantages. Kyr'Vaan continued, as if reciting from orders. You will receive commendation, perhaps even integration into the coalition's primary defense division. That's not what they want, Elias said. They want to take it apart. They want to understand why something old worked better than everything new. Kyr'Vaan regarded him silently. Would that not benefit your species? To contribute something lasting? My species doesn't need more dissection, Elias said quietly. We've been studied enough. The alien fell silent, mandibles clicking softly in thought. The fire between them flickered, throwing long shadows across their faces. Elias could see his own reflection in Kyr'Vaan's glassy eyes, a ghost of a man who had outlived his world. Suddenly, a tremor ran through the ground, subtle but distinct. Elias froze. The air shifted, and faint vibrations rippled through the forest. The storm wasn't over. It was changing. He raised a rifle and scanned the horizon. From the darkness beyond the trees, faint lights began to flicker, small, coordinated, deliberate. The swarm was returning, reorganizing faster than expected. Elias's pulse steadied. He chambered around. Looks like they learned faster than we thought. Kyr'Vaan activated his communicator, but the signal broke apart in static. The interference was stronger now, deeper. The alien soldiers scrambled, checking their weapons, their sensors, their shields. None responded. The forest became a field of silhouettes and sound. Elias lay prone, his mind slipping into focus. The rifle pressed against his shoulder, cool and familiar. Through the scope, he caught the faint glimmer of movement among the branches, figures made of shifting light and metallic sinew. They moved with eerie precision, phasing in and out of visibility. He fired once. The report cracked like thunder, rolling across the valley. One of the swarm figures fell, limbs twitching before vanishing into static. Another followed, and another. Each shot carved a rhythm through the chaos, a heartbeat of defiance. The aliens behind him watched in stunned silence. Their technology had failed again, and yet the human weapon, this relic of steel and powder, was performing flawlessly. Kyr'Vaan's voice was hushed. "They hear you," he murmured. "The swarm, they respond to each impact, as if it speaks to them." Elias didn't answer. He kept firing, each shot measured, purposeful. When the last round echoed into the night, only silence followed. The swarm retreated, vanishing into the mist. He lowered the rifle, breath steady, and turned to find the alien soldiers staring at him with something that almost resembled awe. Kyr'Vaan stepped forward. "You command respect now," he said softly, "even from those who mocked you." Elias wiped his brow, smearing ash across his cheek. Respect fades. Fear lasts longer. The alien inclined his head. "Perhaps both are earned the same way." They stood there, watching the mist reclaim the battlefield. The night was quieter now, but not peaceful. Something had changed, not just in the soldiers around him, but in the rhythm of the world itself. The rifle's barrel still vibrated faintly, as if resonating with something beyond sound. Elias felt it under his palm, subtle but undeniable, a hum that wasn't mechanical. Kyr'Vaan seemed to sense it too. "It's alive," he whispered. Elias shook his head slowly. "No, it's remembering." The alien looked at him, uncertain. Remembering what? Elias stared into the darkness where the swarm had vanished. How to be feared. The wind shifted again, carrying the scent of ozone and rain. Elias slung the rifle over his shoulder and began walking back toward the ridge, the same path he had taken the night before. Behind him, the alien soldiers moved quietly, no longer laughing. The forest seemed to listen as he passed. Each step was deliberate, echoing like punctuation in a story that wasn't finished. Kyr'Vaan followed a few steps behind, his voice soft but steady. "The command will want another report." "They'll get one," Elias said, "but not the truth." "And what is the truth?" Elias glanced back, eyes shadowed beneath his hood. "That the rifle doesn't just speak their language," he said. "It's teaching them ours." He turned away, disappearing into the mist once more, leaving only the faint echo of metal and thunder behind. The transmission spread faster than any of them expected. By the time the smoke had cleared and the fallen were cataloged, every command station within the Galactic Coalition had heard the same rumor. A human sniper had turned the tide of a battle using a weapon made of iron and smoke. Elias Ward's name became shorthand for something inconvenient, proof that what was obsolete might still be dangerous. He hated it immediately. Fame had never saved anyone on a battlefield, and attention, in his experience, only painted brighter targets. He sat alone on the transport deck of a Coalition dropship, boots propped against a crate, the rifle resting across his knees. Through the translucent hull, the planet below receded into haze. Kyr'Vaan stood nearby, speaking in clipped syllables to command over a hollow link, his tone betraying irritation. The alien's armor had been cleaned, his posture restored to its habitual precision, but Elias could tell he was uneasy. When the call ended, Kyr'Vaan approached with the kind of measured formality soldiers used before delivering bad news. "They are bringing us to Central Command," he said. "High Council wants a briefing." Elias ran a cloth along the rifle stock. They want to take it apart. The alien's mandibles clicked softly. They want to understand. Understanding's never free, Elias replied. He locked the bolt and stared out the viewport as the stars bled into streaks. They'll strip it down to dust and tell themselves it was the metal that mattered. Kyr'Vaan hesitated. Would you prefer ignorance? I'd prefer they left ghosts alone. When the ship docked, the corridors of Central Command gleamed with clinical perfection. The air smelled like ozone and sterilizers, and the hum of energy conduits filled the silence. Aliens of a dozen species passed by, glancing at Elias as though he carried contagion. His uniform was torn, his boots caked in mud. The rifle slung over his shoulder looked out of place among crystalline datapads and floating weapon drones. Kyr'Vaan walked beside him, silent, until they reached the observation chamber. A semicircle of officials waited, bioluminescent skin, metallic tendrils, eyes like lenses. They didn't offer greetings, only curiosity. The eldest among them, a translucent being whose body pulsed with internal light, gestured toward the rifle. This object, Sergeant Ward, defies all known electromagnetic parameters, it said in a voice that vibrated through the air rather than entering the ears. Explain how you achieved such an outcome. Elias set the weapon on the table. I aimed. I pulled the trigger. It worked. Several officials exchanged looks of mild offense. Kyr'Vaan stepped forward quickly. The rifle's simplicity appears to circumvent the planet's magnetic interference. It functions through purely kinetic principles. We have studied kinetics, the elder interrupted. Yet no weapon of comparable design performed under those storm conditions. This one emits a frequency pattern during discharge, a resonance within communication bands. Elias's eyes flicked up. You're saying it talks. We are saying, the elder replied, that it responds to something. The room fell quiet. Elias reached for the rifle, his movements slow but certain. Then maybe you should start listening. That ended the session. He was dismissed under guard, escorted to a holding suite that looked more like a cell. Kyr'Vaan visited later, bringing rations neither of them ate. The aliens studied the human for a long moment. They intend to confiscate the weapon for analysis, he said. If you resist, they will not hesitate. Elias leaned back, eyes on the ceiling. You think I care? I think you care more than you pretend. He gave a low laugh. I care about keeping promises. That's all that's left. Kyr'Vaan's mandibles flexed. You're not wrong about them. The Council seeks control more than knowledge. They believe your weapon threatens stability. It's just a gun, Elias said. Nothing is just anything when it changes the shape of fear. Silence settled again, the kind that carried thought heavier than words. Eventually, Kyr'Vaan rose, his movements slow, deliberate. If they take it, you will never see it again. Elias nodded once. Then I guess we don't let them. The escape began hours later. The power grid flickered, alarms echoing through metallic halls. Security drones swarmed the upper corridors, their red optics slicing through the dim light. Elias moved like a shadow, rifle slung across his chest, boots silent on the polished floor. Kyr'Vaan led the way through maintenance tunnels, wings folded tight against his back. They sealed the main hangar, the alien said. We'll need to exit through the lower atmospheric vents. Works for me, Elias muttered. Less traffic. They reached the vent shaft just as the pursuit closed in. Plasma bolts seared the air, shattering metal panels. Elias dropped to one knee, returned fire once, the thunderous report of the rifle echoing through the narrow corridor. A drone exploded midair, debris scattering in sparks. Another shot followed, then another. The weapon's recoil jolted through his body, grounding him in something older than fear. Each round felt heavier, as though the rifle itself grew aware of the stakes. They emerged onto an exterior platform overlooking the planet's pale horizon. Wind tore through the open space, carrying the scent of ozone. Behind them, alarms howled. Ahead, the darkness stretched into endless sky. Kyr'Vaan activated a small transponder, signaling a nearby patrol ship to intercept. Elias leaned against the railing, rifle at his side. They'll brand us traitors. Perhaps, Kyr'Vaan said, mandibles twitching in what might have been a smile. But history seldom remembers the right names anyway. The patrol ship arrived in silence, its lights dimmed. As they boarded, Elias caught a final glimpse of the city below, sterile towers gleaming against the stars, a monument to control. He knew he would never return. Hours later, the ship drifted beyond radar range. The interior lights were low, the hum of the engine steady. Elias sat across from Kyr'Vaan, cleaning the rifle again, each motion careful, reverent. The alien watched quietly before asking, "Why do you protect it so fiercely?" Elias paused, his hands still. "Because it's the last piece of who we were. My grandfather fought with it on Earth. My father carried it in the colonist uprisings. Every mark on it means someone held the line when they shouldn't have been able to." He looked up, eyes steady. "It's not a weapon. It's a memory that still fights back." Kyr'Vaan inclined his head. "And now it fights for more than one species." "Maybe," Elias said. "Or maybe it just doesn't care who holds it, as long as they listen." The alien's gaze drifted to the weapon. "The council won't stop. They will come for you again. For it." Then we keep moving. Outside, the stars stretched endlessly, cold and indifferent. Elias leaned his head back, closing his eyes. He could still feel the vibration through the metal floor. The same hum he'd felt through the rifle stock. It wasn't mechanical, not entirely. It resonated like breath, faint but alive. Kyr'Vaan broke the silence. "The swarm will return. Without the coalition's defenses, we may not survive another assault." Elias opened his eyes. "Then we show them how to fight without the crutch of machines." The alien studied him for a long moment, then nodded slowly. "You think humanity still has something to teach the stars?" Elias smiled faintly. "No, I think the stars have forgotten how to listen." The patrol ship drifted toward the dark side of the planet, engines whispering against the void. Behind them, Central Command's beacon pulsed like a distant heartbeat, summoning fleets to hunt the deserters. Ahead lay uncharted silence. Elias rested his palm on the rifle stock. The hum deepened beneath his touch, like a heartbeat answering his own. Kyr'Vaan turned to the viewport. "Where will we go?" "Somewhere they can't hear us," Elias said. "Somewhere quiet enough for the rifle to remember." The alien nodded, eyes fixed on the stars. "And when it remembers everything." Elias looked at the weapon, old, scarred, unwavering, and smiled without humor. "Then maybe it'll teach the galaxy why we never should have been forgotten." The night sky over the uncharted world burned faintly with the glow of distant storms. Elias lay on his stomach atop a ridge of pale stone, the rifle steady against his shoulder, his eye pressed to the scope. Below, the remnants of an outpost shimmered under the faint light of alien moons. Kyr'Vaan crouched beside him, motionless except for the subtle twitch of his mandibles. They had been hunted for 6 standard weeks, chased through backwater systems by the Coalition's relentless pursuit. Every planet brought new storms, but this one felt different. The wind carried a low vibration through the ground, a pulse that resonated faintly with the hum inside Elias's rifle. He adjusted the focus, watching movement at the outpost perimeter, scouts, drones, familiar shapes. Coalition troops had already landed. They moved with mechanical precision, scanning the terrain. Kyr'Vaan whispered, "They are triangulating. They will find us within the hour." Elias didn't answer. His finger hovered near the trigger, not from fear, but from instinct. The rifle's hum deepened, faint but constant. "They're not here for us," he said quietly. "They're here for it. The rifle, they think it's talking again." Kyr'Vaan studied him for a moment. "Is it?" Elias pulled back the bolt, checking the chamber. "You tell me." The round inside gleamed faintly, light rippling along its metallic surface as if reacting to sound too low for hearing. Kyr'Vaan's eyes reflected the shimmer, equal parts fascination and dread. The first flash of light came from the far side of the valley. Plasma bolts streaked upward, followed by the unmistakable distortion of swarm interference. The air rippled as the enemy arrived, descending like a storm front, hundreds of shimmering forms phasing in and out of visibility. Elias felt his pulse slow, his breathing find rhythm. The swarm had found the coalition first. The battle unfolded like lightning striking water. Energy beams tore through the air. The coalition's plasma cannons sputtered under interference. The swarm adapted to every frequency, bending the battlefield to chaos. Elias watched it unfold with the weary calm of someone who had seen this pattern too many times. He sighted down the rifle and whispered, "Same dance, different song." Kyr'Vaan looked at him sharply. "You cannot mean to intervene. They are hunting you." "They're still soldiers," Elias said. "Doesn't matter which side forgot that." Before the alien could protest, Elias fired. The sound tore through the night, a single thunderclap that echoed across the valley. One of the swarm creatures convulsed midair, dissolving into static. The entire battlefield paused, as though the planet itself had inhaled. Then came a second shot, and the third. Each report carved through interference, the kinetic resonance spreading like a ripple across water. The swarm faltered, its coordination wavering. Kyr'Vaan stared through his lenses. They are reacting to it, again. The frequency is disrupting their link. Elias reloaded smoothly, the rhythm of motion precise, controlled. "It's not disrupting them," he said. "It's communicating." Below, the swarm began to shift patterns, its formation breaking apart. Instead of attacking, the creatures pulsed in unison, a rhythm that matched the faint vibration in the rifle. The resonance deepened, no longer confined to sound but vibrating through the air itself. Elias felt it in his bones, a strange harmony, ancient and vast. Kyr'Vaan grasped the edge of the ridge, his voice trembling. "They are answering it." The coalition soldiers on the ground stopped firing, their scanners blinding them with static. Through the interference, one word repeated across every channel: resonance. No one understood its source. Elias chambered another round, eyes narrowing. They're not just listening, they're learning. Lightning split the horizon, illuminating the valley in a brief flash. The swarm changed shape, collapsing into a single spiral of light. Elias could feel the pull of it through the rifle, as if the weapon itself wanted to move, to aim higher. The hum turned into a low tone, almost a voice beneath hearing. Kyr'Vaan stepped back. "Elias, it is merging frequencies. If you fire again, you may complete the signal. That's the point. This could destroy both sides." Elias looked through the scope, his expression calm. Then maybe they'll finally understand each other. He squeezed the trigger. The explosion wasn't sound. It was sensation, a pulse that flattened wind, crushed silence, and sent a wave of energy rippling outward from the point of impact. The swarm vanished, its forms dissolving into light that cascaded across the sky. Coalition sensors overloaded and failed. Kyr'Vaan shielded his eyes as the ridge trembled. The rifle bucked in Elias's hands, glowing faintly before cooling to darkness. When the light faded, the valley was still. No movement, no sound. Only the soft hiss of dust settling through the air. Elias lowered the weapon. The barrel smoked faintly, but it no longer hummed. It was silent, as if spent beyond repair. Kyr'Vaan rose slowly, his voice quiet. "What did you do?" "I'll let it finish this sentence." The alien looked down at the battlefield. There were no bodies, no wreckage. Only a vast circle of scorched earth, perfectly smooth. The swarm was gone, the coalition troops vanished. "They have been erased," Kyr'Vaan whispered. "Not erased," Elias said, examining the rifle. "Transmitted." The alien stared at him. "To where?" Elias met his gaze. "Wherever they listen." For a long time, neither spoke. The wind returned, carrying with it the faint scent of rain. Elias slung the rifle across his back and began descending the ridge. Kyr'Vaan followed, his usual composure fractured. "You realize what this means?" he said. "They will come again, your coalition, my command. Everyone will seek to replicate what you have done." Elias nodded. "That's their mistake. You can't copy a conversation you don't understand." They reached the valley floor. The soil beneath their boots shimmered faintly, as though charged with some residual energy. Kyr'Vaan knelt and touched the ground. The frequency remains. It's part of the planet now. Then maybe it learned something too, Elias said. They walked in silence for several minutes until Kyr'Vaan spoke again. What will you do now? Keep walking, Elias replied. Find somewhere the stars don't whisper. And the rifle? Elias unslung it, running his hand along the barrel. It's quiet. For the first time in a long while, it's just metal again. Kyr'Vaan regarded him carefully. You have changed. Before, you fought to prove humans could still matter. Now you seem ready to disappear. Elias smiled faintly. Maybe disappearing is proof enough. The alien tilted his head, mandibles flexing thoughtfully. Do you think it is over? Wars don't end, Elias said. They just run out of people who remember why they started. The sky above them began to shift color, pale light breaking across the horizon. The storm had passed, leaving air so clear it hurt to breathe. Elias paused and looked back once more at the ridge. The faint outline of the blast circle glowed under the rising sun, like a scar carved into eternity. He lifted the rifle one last time and looked through the scope. There was nothing to aim at, only endless light stretching toward the stars. He exhaled, slow and steady, then lowered it again. Kyr'Vaan stood beside him, silent, watching the same dawn. You could rebuild, the alien said softly. Humanity could return. Elias shook his head. Humanity never left. It just got quiet. They started walking again, their silhouettes fading into the mist that gathered along the valley edge. The planet's wind carried a low vibration, faint but persistent, a resonance that echoed what had been unleashed. Elias listened to it for a while, hearing neither words nor melody, only understanding. The rifle, strapped to his back, remained silent, its purpose fulfilled. As the two figures disappeared into the distance, the sky shimmered once more. Somewhere beyond the clouds, in the vast spread of stars, a faint echo pulsed back toward the world they had left behind. It was not a call to arms, nor a warning, but something older, deeper, a memory learning to speak again. Elias paused, glancing upward, his face caught in the pale light. He couldn't tell if what he heard was real or imagined. It didn't matter. The sound was human enough. He adjusted the strap on his shoulder and continued forward, the echo fading behind him until only the wind remained.